Hello, guys, and welcome back to the All New Nerds and what might be our
Hello.
60th episode. Could it
I
be?
think
Is this our
so.
60? It's our 60th
I think it
anniversary.
actually might be.
60 weeks
so.
of doing this wacky show, getting interviews and
Mhm.
stuff. Well, it's
Mhm.
Levi, as always. It's Johnny. No Ben, no Dylan. However, we are joined by a very special guest. His videos, you've probably seen them in your recommended video essays on anything from Star Wars to Mass Effect to Borderlands, Last of Us, if you're interested. This guy he's been taking the scene as of late, and we're really happy to have him on and talk to him about his most recent video, Mandalorian: A Gunslinger's Odyssey. Here we have Parks ArTorr. Oh, I did it. No, that was me.
Did it again.
I did it again. I did it again. I was
Hello.
reaction. How are you doing
guys,
today?
Hello, I'm great. You know, it was a little weird being in here for a second and being taken out, but it wasn't my fault. That's all.
I know it was definitely my fault. I will tell you right now, it was 100% my fault.
But no,
So,
it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on. I by far have the most boring background, but that's because
I know.
of my
This is
connection.
in the.
I bought
swear I
all this
collect
just for
things.
the
I have
podcast, just so you know.
Yeah. No, you got great posters in the back there. I love them.
Thank you.
I'm trying to identify some of them. I'm like, yeah, they're so far away and they're blurry.
See the Clone Wars one.
I can tell Clone Wars.
That's not. Okay, that's Clone Wars. Spider-Man.
Yeah, there's a Spider-Man there.
You can't really see the one above it, but that's a Arkham Batman poster.
Okay.
Nice.
Great.
We could do a whole pod about that.
And
Ooh,
then
I could.
over here, these are posters for two short films I did in college. One is called Bread. The other one's called Toast. They're both
Nice.
about
I
food.
love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then this is the Batman poster. You can actually
Yeah,
see
I
the
figured,
question
yeah.
mark on it pretty
Yeah.
clearly, which is fun.
Yeah.
And then over here is a series of Mass Effect posters, including there's one there of Commander Shepard that is signed by Mark Meer, who's the voice of Commander Shepard.
Awesome.
So yeah.
This is hey, yours are his favorite video essays on the Citadel. So there you go.
Yeah.
I'll approve that for him. Well,
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, to start off, I wanted to talk about just sort of the state of fandoms in general and the relationship to the video essay, because I think probably the first time I felt the emergence of the video essay was right around, I think, The Last Jedi. It was 2017, and it's very likely
Star Wars, I would say.
it is very likely
around.
they were around before, but for me,
Yeah.
as someone who was starting to engage in fandom, this is when I really saw the explosion. First with a lot of negative ones, and then with positive ones, and vice versa. This format.
Very opinionated.
Most people are pretty aware of, I don't know, for example, like Mahler's 10-hour-long series on The Force Awakens, for example.
Yeah.
And now, while I may not agree with a lot of the points reached in that video, the fact that there is this 10-hour-long series that gets millions of views definitely proves or speaks to the fact that the way that we engage in discourse is changing. People want and people will rally around these huge long form videos. A lot of cases, though, these videos are just rambling. Like in Mahler's case, it's over gameplay. And this is the video essay in that way has been even longer, where it's just gameplay in the background or unrelated context and people rambling and talking. And that's well and good. Then, some editing comes in, but here we have you, where these are highly produced. You said in your video, and for Gunslinger Odyssey, you spent 300 hours working on this. I mean, this is a production.
Yeah.
And so the way
Absolutely.
you have changed that video essay format to meet your own, but how do you feel about it as being part of that discourse, and the way that people do rally around certain videos? The Rebels videos has over 1 million views, and a lot of people, they point to that as that's my understanding of Rebels. Just as for a lot of people, for the Mahler videos, that's their understanding of The Force Awakens. And it's like, these video essays are having a huge impact on the way we talk about fandom. But here you are. So how do you feel about your impact on that?
The man who made it. Yeah.
The man who made it. Yeah.
For me, I mean, when I started my channel, in 2019, like I wasn't really thinking about contribution to fandom in any way. And that, really followed through probably all the way until the Rebels video is probably a turning point for that.
Absolutely.
Really, all I wanted to do was just sort of express things that, were express things that I wanted to see in the discourse. And I guess in that way, that sort of says like I had some awareness of fandom and what things were being said about what, for instance, like a big reason I made my Clone Wars videos on ArTorr was because, you know, I was rewatching the Clone Wars at the end of 2019 going into 2020. And that was the first time I was watching the show since I was a kid. And my mind was blown. I was like, dude, like this holds up so, so well. And
Absolutely.
yeah. And I went on YouTube, as anyone does who enjoys like a piece of media and, you know, wants to watch a video essay. I was pretty disappointed by like the offering and couldn't find any sort of video that sort of offered the depth of discussion that you know I wanted, that I was interested in.
Hmm.
And so that's why I made those videos, is because I wanted to sort of, you know, not even just make those videos for other people, just make them for myself, so I could, you know, find something and revisit that makes me go, "Ah, yes, that's all things I love about it. Like finally the video I want exists." The Rebels video, you know, and this is after making several other videos on, you know, The Last of Us, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Cyberpunk 2077. The Rebels video was a turning point because that's when like the fandom sort of came to me in a way. Like there was a lot of Star Wars accounts, content creators, other sort of, you know, influencers who, you know, picked up on the video, shared it, and you know, said like this is a great thing for the fandom. And that's where I sort of became like, you know, sort of like very aware of sort of my role in the discourse and the potential of my videos to have like an impact or an effect on that. And that's only sort of, you know, I've only become more aware of that over time. And so with every video I make, really, you know, I try to look at what's been said sometimes, and I don't necessarily go out looking at everybody's video essays to sort of see what they say, or you know, sort of going into these deep dive videos to sort of surmise what's already been said. I just sort of, you know, I start with what do I want to express? You know, what are people interested in, perhaps? You know, for instance, like, you know, being a Star Wars fan on Twitter this year, I got a very good impression of what people thought of the Book of Boba Fett. Got a very good impression of what people thought of Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's no doubt going to inform me in the future when I make those videos. But more than anything else, it just starts and you know, through the middle, though, I'm trying to, you know, create meaningful discourse for the fandom. By the end, it still comes back to what did I want to express, and I figure, you know, if these were genuine feelings I had, and I, you know, have expressed them as well as I know how with, you know, my talents and abilities, my, you know, writing and my editing, then surely it's going to connect with someone. And if it connects with enough people, then that maybe creates a new dime in the conversation. I don't know, but you know, invariably it's all about just sort of expressing what I want to express. And I'm sure a lot of video essayists would probably say the same thing though. But for me, like a lot of that is positive. What I want to express is positive because I love these things. Why would I want to harp on them? You know, so and that's also just sort of a general outlook of the media I like spending time with, is not ones that make me angry or upset me. I, you know, I want to talk about the things I enjoy, because that's like that's just a good way to live, you know, it's just
Absolutely.
to spend time with things that you like spending time with, you know. So
Yes, you
Yeah,
can,
I,
and that's what's so good about Star Wars is that there are things to love. I mean, there's so much that you can love. You know, certain sections here and there. You don't,
yeah,
you know, certainly don't have to love it all. No one's
of
forcing you to.
course,
So
yeah,
yeah, I was definitely gonna
yeah,
comment on that sort of the way, because I think on this channel we pretty much agree in the way we approach discourse. Is like we want it to be more positive leaning, and
yeah,
the way that you, like, even in something like the tragedy of Cyberpunk, is the way you're able to keep something, the it's almost like a positive doctrine going into the essay, and
yeah,
it's a really impressive feat that not only have your videos become so popular, but you're able to maintain that positivity, because as we see through the discourse, I think more often than not, it is like those negative video essays can blow up on no matter what size the channel is,
yeah,
no matter almost
yeah,
what it's talked about. But the negative essays are a dime a dozen these days, and they're all successful. And so the
yeah,
way that you're able to channel that positivity into making
yeah.
this content is it's impressive from
I
my
I
point.
will say, like, one thing that does motivate me with my videos, if I'm being honest, like despite, you know, just wanting to express something, you know, true to how I feel about it, is seeing all those negative things and seeing sort of a lot of the complaints about, say, Mando season 2, where people were like, oh, it's just a cameo fest. Oh, you know, they ruined Mando by having him take his helmet off and this and that. You know, mind you, these are not like super popular complaints, but if there is a video essayist out there with these thoughts, you know, most certainly they were vocalized. And for me, like my strategy with ArTorr a lot of the time is, you know, I want to show people, I guess, that not only is it better, like not only is it you know, feel better to be positive about these things, but I can make better videos that are positive than the people who are negative. So why even engage with that when you're going to learn more, when you're going to hopefully feel more and connect and actually have a hopefully an experience, you know, like a good experience if you've watched my videos and enjoy them. Um, you know, because there really is no like the negativity doesn't add anything for anybody. If anything, I think, and this is really also just a Star Wars ethos, is that like, you know, if you spend so much time with those negative thoughts and feelings, you're not really getting anywhere. You're not really moving past them. You're just sort of it's as Dave Filoni
dwelling
says, you're
in
just
them.
being a
Yeah.
Sith, you know.
Yeah.
Dare I say, it's not fighting what we hate, but saving what we love.
Exactly. Yes.
one might say that.
One might say
Yeah.
that.
One might say that. Yeah, I actually, to get into more of the nitty gritty of the video you just made, we brought you on for Gunslinger's Odyssey. It has a lot to do with myth and the way that those myths influence the stories and the mythic qualities of the storytelling of the Mandalorian.
Yes.
But just bringing up that quote from that theme of Star Wars is making me think. I left a comment on your video which you responded to about how I would love to see you tackle some of the themes later in the saga about how the myth can sometimes threaten the mythical. And
Yes.
I don't know, I'm just excited to see what you do with that. But I wanted to bring up more of the context of the video and the way what you did there.
Yeah, I mean, the fun thing too about that, you know, because I remember your comment and you know, in reference to The Last Jedi, especially, that's a huge part of that movie, the myth threatening the mythical, as you've worded it. The fun thing about analyzing all these Star Wars views over time, or you know, making these analysis Star Wars videos and going into the saga each time, is that for the most part, you know, people tend to think of all these projects as sort of separate darts being thrown at a board, when in actuality a lot of them have been told with like very impressive consistency. And so there is, when I, you know, approached the Mandalorian video and I decided like I was going to talk about, you know, myth and the sort of preservation of myth, the evolution of myth, the sort of how the myth can die out. I treated it as a thematic sequel to the discussion in Rebels, because at the culmination of Rebels, and you know, this is a big part of my video that I made about that show, is how, you know, your actions, like your persevering, selfless actions, can give hope to others that things can change. If you do that on a grand enough scale, you've created something that will give hope to all. That is the power of a myth. That is what a myth can do. So that show essentially ends with the establishment of a new myth that's going to inspire people. The Mandalorian, then, taking place after the sort of great mythical battle of the original trilogy, is about, okay, well, the battle's been had, the myth helped people through this war, it defeated the Empire. Now what happens to the myth? Do we need it anymore? Does it go away? Does it die out? Is it still useful? And what happens when it dies? You know, is something more evil going to rise up again? And then certainly, you know, though I haven't, you know, researched it to the same extent yet, and I don't know when I will, because, you know, I would want to go through all the Star Wars movies before getting to like the sequel trilogy. But there is definitely like a through line from that to the sequel trilogy, and that just speaks to, I think, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni's awareness of that story, awareness of what came before it, and how they can sort of tie those together in a really interesting way. And a story that is still being told, mind you, because, you know, that's just the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. Book of Boba Fett, I feel, adds to that conversation. There's more seasons of The Mandalorian. I'm sure Ahsoka is going to add to that in some way. So yeah, it's just very cool to see how it's all tied together.
For sure. Yeah, certainly. Thematically. One of the most impressive things about the video, though, is undoubtedly the editing, and your opening sequence is, I mean, incredibly captivating. And the
Thank
way
you.
that, yeah, the way, I mean, this is less a Star Wars question or a, you know, a myth question, more just like how did you go about matching all of those shots to the, you know, the Kurosawa films? That must have taken just, was it research? Like, did you have to watch all those movies to look for those bits, or did you like
So
look at it?
it started with, and this really applies to the whole video. The intro, of course, encapsulates that because that's where I'm sort of establishing, like, we're talking about westerns and samurai movies
The
and
samurai
this.
films, yeah.
You know, it started with me, like, again, like, you know, at the very beginning, I write a pitch for that only I'm going to see of what I want the video to be, and I knew, like, you know, growing up, I loved western movies. The samurai genre is not one I'm overly familiar with, but I've always thought they're really cool, and I thought, hey, this is maybe a really, you know, good opportunity to learn more about it. And you know, if you watch Disney Gallery The Mandalorian, which of course is where a lot of my footage and research comes from, they talk about like movies like Yojimbo and the influences of like sort of samurai cinema on The Mandalorian. So it seemed like something that was definitely worth diving into if, you know, I was going to talk about the show in some extent. And from there, like, I was able to look up some things where people had already picked out some of those connections, but there's actually quite a few that I found on my own, which I was very proud of. Which, again, yes, did involve pretty much watching. I won't say all the movies that were in the video, but probably 70% of them.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like I
Some of those
watched.
movies are very long too.
Yes, like Once
Yeah.
Upon a Time, or what is it? Once Upon a Time in the West. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like a 3-hour movie. Good, Bad,
Seven,
the Ugly is
I
a
mean,
3-hour
Seven Samurai
movie.
too.
You had Seven Samurai
Seven
in
Samurai
that
is
too,
like
yeah.
4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so long. Oh my god.
It's really long, but it's good.
I don't know. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, but yeah, I watched all of them, and it was actually very gratifying to sort of see the connections over time because there was really no organization to how I watched them. It was literally like,
Sure.
okay, like I got a few hours tonight. What am I watching? You know, let me.
Mhm.
And then I would start, and then it would just be interchangeably like samurai film, western film, samurai film, and like there are certain films like say that I didn't come across at all in my research, like Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, that I sort of watched on a whim.
Mhm.
And that movie is essentially about like the death of the West and
Mhm.
about like, you know, these aging outlaws really not having a place in the world. And the whole movie has these musical sort of interlude sequences with Bob Dylan. And that was actually a big inspiration for sort of the musical bits I have in my video
Mm.
with Under the Milky Way and Rocket Man um,
I was gonna ask about that. Yeah.
and so that movie sort of fueled sort of like, aha, like my observations are accurate about the show. Which,
Interesting.
so at that point then, with the intro, like just for instance, like, it just came down to, okay, like how do I communicate this visually? My goal is to get through this sequence without my commentary. How do I communicate to the audience the connection between Boba Fett, the Western, the samurai film, Star Wars, and then the Mandalorian? And it had to go in that order.
Mhm.
Um, and I even if I didn't do it, I knew it was going to feel really cool to whoever watched it.
And it
It was
definitely
very
did.
cool. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, it's at some points you're cutting between them all, and you just feel like you're watching one thing because that's how
Mhm.
heavily
Yes.
ingrained into the Mandalorian some of this style. I mean, I think by this point, if you're familiar with the Jedi, you know, Chapter 13, it's like shot for shot sometimes with Yojimbo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That time that one has been pretty put out there, but some of the other, you know, stuff that I hadn't thought about, I hadn't made visual connections to. It was just like
A lot
gorgeous
of
to
stuff in
watch.
season one. A lot of stuff in season one, especially.
Yeah, season 1 I wanted to
You
talk
were
about.
pointing out a lot with the westerns. I think there was a couple cuts between Once Upon a Time in the West and you know, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
that was
and
so cool. And
there were more
yeah.
connections that I didn't point out too that that I sort of left out just because I was trying to prioritize other things. Like for
Sure.
instance, during the chapter 2 of the video, like the Under the Milky Way sort of musical sequence,
Mhm.
where my priority is sort of like during the musical sort of interlude bits, I'm trying to prioritize sort of Mando's experience and his trauma and his hesitance to open up to people. Um, there's a moment in chapter 4 of the show, you know, the sanctuary, um, where the mom walks in with her daughter or whatever, and Mando like jumps for his gun, which and then slowly puts it back. that is a direct reference to a movie called Shane, which is referenced in the video at the very beginning. A gunslinger named Shane
Gotcha.
rides in on this farm, and this mother brings out her kid, and then he pulls his gun, and it's like the same moment. And it's just so cool because you almost feel like you've just jumped in a time machine when I was watching those movies, because I was
Yeah.
like, or like Leonardo DiCaprio pointing, you're like, hang on, that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the Mandalorian, so it's
Absolutely.
cool.
Yeah. No, that's
Well,
really cool. That's definitely an experience I'm interested to do. Like, and I've been especially westerns. I want to go back and personally I want to watch, some of the spaghetti westerns, and I'm curious to
Yes.
see like if I pick out more of the connections. As I watch them through. But yeah, it's really intriguing.
it definitely, yeah, it sort of reverse engineered my even more enjoyment for especially
Mhm.
Mando season 1. I'm glad you brought that up,
Mm.
Johnny, because going into it,
Underrated.
you-
It's an underrated season. I don't think people talk about it enough. I really
exactly, because in previous times, obviously we talk about a lot about Star Wars on this channel. Mando season 1 has been, I think it's really good, but it's usually pretty low in terms of the TV rankings for me.
Yeah.
I once again think it's great. I just think the other stuff is better. But having seen your video, and for you going into it, did you, because everyone talks about the cameo fest thing. So I think that actually I think that actually is a wider criticism than you think, because I hear that all the time. I mean, I hear that cameo fest thing
Yeah.
from detractors a lot.
That's even just like in other shows. I mean, yeah, people have been freaking with
Freaking with
Boba even
cameo.
as well. And
Yeah.
So
But having watched Mando season 1 and Mando season 2 before this, going into the video, where I do think that Mando season 1 here shines more so than it ever has. Did you go in going like, there's Mando season 1 where not a lot happens, and then there's Mando season 2 where I can really dig into it with all of this imagery and this stuff? And is that how you approach it? And then you found more?
For me, it was like I felt like I had an obligation to do everything justice as much as possible. And I'll be honest, like Mando season 2, I prefer that to season 1 personally. And like and that too, like obviously I talk about in the conclusion that arrived at such a pivotal point in my life. And like, maybe for some people when they're watching the show, week to week, they're like, oh, it's a new Mandalorian episode. But for me, like watching it week to week for season 2, it was like, oh my God, like it's a new leg of this journey he's on, like it's
Yeah.
crazy.
season 2 was huge. Was huge.
Yeah.
Remember
And with season 1, I don't think, I mean, I loved it when it came out, but I think the only thing was it just got overshadowed by how much I loved season 2. And so doing this video was an opportunity to sort of, for myself, to reappreciate season 1 and to, through my research, because there's actually probably way more, maybe not way more, but just a good deal more research and information available on season 1 than there is on season 2. So I was actually able to parse quite a lot about that
They
season.
did a 6-part. I think they did a 6-part gallery.
8.
Right?
8-part,
8-part gallery for season 1, and then season 2 got 2 episodes.
2
right?
episodes, yeah.
Yeah. So, I know. I totally
yeah.
get that. There's definitely a lot to more unpack with season 1.
Mm-hmm.
The Phil
and a big
Sostak art books are the savior, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I quote Phil Sostak at one point in the video. Yeah, no, for sure. The season 1 art book was super informative, super insightful, and that also gives like a timeline for the development of the show, which is great. Yeah, and that really just elevated a lot of it. And I was almost worried, in fact, by the end of making the video, like I was like, man, like, because again, like at this point, I'm aware of what detractors of the show might say, when I put out a video, and I wonder if I've maybe provided a compelling enough counter argument, or if I've given them a reason to appreciate the show instead. I was almost worried that my season 1 analysis was just more solid than my season 2 analysis, and that people would be like, oh man, like, yeah, this is why season 1's great. And I don't really like how he argued season 2. But part of that is also like, after you work on something for so long, you sort of lose perspective on it, and you start to forget like what you were trying to do with it in the first place. And so that was sort of happening to me towards the end. But so yeah, I'm glad you appreciated that part, and that it made you appreciate season 1 again in some ways. And as well with that, I should say, like, part of my goal with season 1 as well, and it was a similar goal to what I had when I did my Clone Wars videos, is the Clone Wars is very episodic, and I was trying to sort of in those videos create a connection between all the disparate stories and characters and try to make it seem like it's one. There's one through line through it all, like a complete story that sort of everything sort of builds off each other. The Mandalorian obviously is a little more focused because of Mando himself, but it's still episodic in the middle, and so I was trying to really emphasize his character growth and make that sort of the through line, despite the setting around him changing, as if it's like linear, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you feel that. I was actually one of my later questions, but I'll just bring it up now. It is actually something you omitted, or not like from Mando's journey, but in the Siege chapter 12, like there is stuff in there. I was like, is this going to get covered in the context of the myth? And it wasn't. And I was like, yeah, I understand why. Like you're trying to keep it focused, but with some of those larger maybe galactic implication story beats in universe. I mean, outside of how we're looking at it. How did you argue with yourself of like, do I include this? I'm referencing the stuff in the tank, the midichlorians, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Did you argue with yourself like, do I want to include this, or is it not necessary? Like me personally, I think the way your video flows is perfect, and it doesn't seem to be necessary. And I bet that's the conclusion you reached as well. But was there a point in time where you thought, is there a way I can address this in the context of Mando's story?
Kind of. I like from the get-go when I was sort of outlining chapter to chapter, and I don't have a clear idea of how the video's gonna go necessarily when I start like working on it and I start working towards what I want the video to be, especially if it's like the second half of the video and that relies on what did I do in the first half of the video. And so more than likely as I'm writing, that's when I start to get a clear idea of what I'm going to do with, in that sense, the season 2 discussion. I knew there were some parts of it that I really, was going to focus on, sort of, especially that journey from the end of chapter 9 to 10 to 11, from his ship getting just pummeled about and then meeting Bo-Katan, and pretty much Mando's whole world has just been like completely just turned upside down. I knew I wanted to focus on that, and then I knew I really wanted to talk about the Ahsoka episode because it's my favorite episode, but also like that's such an important moment, and I really wanted to explain why Ahsoka's presence in the show isn't a cameo. It's like actually like it's a fundamental role in the broadening of his perspective. The Siege then became something that I sort of naturally overlooked because
it fits between Bo-Katan saying Ahsoka Tano and Caladan and him.
And in the show it's phenomenally directed. Like that episode is so fun. And great action, and it's like a necessary intermission kind of, because you just went from something, every episode has action, has explosions, has the character beats, but the Heiress sort of was a pretty heavy episode character wise for Mando, and the Jedi was also going to be a pretty heavy episode, mainly for Grogu, more than Mando, but still a pretty heavy, more meditative episode. So you kind of need the Siege in there. So I mainly tried to acknowledge it through like more indirect implications towards the end of my chapter in the video, where I'm talking about sort of how the rest of the galaxy has moved on, and of course that includes Navarro. But yeah, it was mainly that the sort of main takeaway of that episode would have been like the greater implications of things the Empire's doing that we don't really know where it's leading yet. That I said, okay, like this doesn't quite have a place in my video. However, I could bring it up in the future. If seeing where Mando season 3 goes and where that storyline goes.
I think it'll become more resonant kind of as we go along. So.
And it might be something that I touch more on and talk more about. It doesn't get the full episode treatment that I did with a lot of other episodes in the video, but it's still a part of the story, no doubt.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it was the right choice.
A great answer. Yeah, exactly what I.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
And I'm glad that you think that the video flowed well without it, because also I was worried some people were going to be like, what's this cargo erasure?
Yeah.
I don't know why you didn't bring up the crew member in the back of the Siege episode. In the back.
Jeans guy.
Jeans guy.
Yeah.
I was so disappointed. That's so
dramatic resonance of that character. Come on.
Or the lesser known but still pretty great a helicopter in the sky
in
of
the
the
it's
tragedy.
tragedy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
Because they just
yeah,
filmed it in California, right out.
yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Oh
Good. Yeah.
man.
Because remember,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember. Total aside, quick aside, interview break. That people thought that was a fan film back when they were filming it,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it got they
It
had
blew up
people
on
have footage
TikTok.
of that, but they dismissed it because like, oh, that's just a fan film.
I
And
didn't
then
know that. That's
yeah,
crazy.
because it was
Yeah.
just out there. People were like, oh,
Yeah.
there's
Because
like
they
stormtroopers
were
on
just
rocks.
stormtroopers in the hills of California, and people were like, "What? Like,
Yeah,
oh, it
fan
must
film.
just be like
Just a
fan film,
fan film. Yeah.
just a fan film."
Well, to
But
build
yeah, pretty
on
funny.
that sort of wider galaxy implication thing, to take it back
Yeah.
to the third animated series you covered, The Bad Batch, which I think that video
Hmm.
does a lot for The Bad Batch, a series that I think is pretty underrated, actually.
Yeah.
I
And
would
how
agree. Yeah.
that show, with the wrap up on Mount Tantus and the cloning and the implications that that might have, and how it may or may not connect to what's going on in the future.
Mhm.
Do you anticipate yourself doing another video for season 2? Reevaluating The Bad Batch as it comes out later this year.
Probably not right now, not having seen it, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
But mainly because, I sort of realized last year, that I had, I only made 4 videos last year. And of course, my videos are really long. I can't,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
a factory. Like, I can't put them out super fast. But
Don't be hard on
um,
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah,
thank
please.
you.
I'm not trying to make more. No.
Yeah. No.
I'll do my best. But no, I sort of, I had just put out a Mass Effect video at the same time season 1 concluded, and the Mass Effect video did not do well view wise. And I tell everyone, like, I don't do this for views. Like, it starts and ends with me just trying to say something. The views are certainly a part of it that I prepare for and I expect, um, and to be honest, like, it maybe has a sway sometimes in what I do. And in that instance, I saw, I put out a community post to ask people what they thought of the show, and it got like so much engagement. And meanwhile, the Mass Effect video didn't, wasn't doing much. And I was like, man, like, I could just put out a Bad Batch video. But the deal I made with myself was, if I'm going to make a video about this show, I have to have something really, really important to say. Otherwise, I shouldn't make it. And so that's where the whole, I'm going to talk about veterans awareness angle came in, because that is a relevant aspect of the show that one could very easily project on it.
Yeah.
And being that Jennifer Corbett, served in the Navy and stuff as that, to me felt like a very valid thing to pick up on. So that was sort of the justification for talking about one season of a new Star Wars animated show when the rest of the show hadn't come out yet, was that this video is going to focus on that there's other things maybe looming in the greater story, but if those things will be discussed, I'm not going to dwell too much on them in this video. So that being said, I don't expect to make a video on Bad Batch Season 2 for that reason. However, I don't know, because I haven't seen it. Maybe I'll see it and go, you know what, man, I got something really great to say again. But otherwise, the more likely thing to expect with a Bad Batch would be, when the series is finished, I'll make a video in the vein of sort of my Rebels or Clone Wars videos going into the making. And because I didn't, again, didn't get to touch on that too much with Bad Batch, because there isn't much known about the making of the show. Like, there's some concept art and some production info
Yeah.
on
I was thinking
StarWars.com.
we don't even have a gallery episode for it, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing. Wow.
I don't know how they
Um,
would. I
Interesting.
don't know if
Yeah.
they.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's the
I mean,
thing
it's
too,
animated,
is
sure, but I mean,
it's
production.
animated, and a lot of it was done during COVID lockdown, so
Right.
remotely. So like,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to chronicle that when that is such a fundamental part of the show. And like, how do you make a Disney gallery about how everyone was sort of locked in?
At home.
It's like,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that there will be more sort of behind the scenes material in the future, and when there is, like, I'll definitely try to do more with that. But yeah, and the other thing too is, my hope with that video is with Bad Batch Season 2, maybe people will revisit it, and they'll have a lot of those things in mind when they go into the show. And maybe in a way they'll sort of have they'll be equipped to sort of analyze characters and themes on their own, which would be really cool. But yeah,
I think one of the greatest, I don't know, greatest, but certainly one of the best in recent memory for Star Wars, in terms of character, just I don't know, the power of a particular moment is when Crosshair kills his elite squad in Camino, staring
Yeah.
Hunter down,
Yeah.
and that whole reveal with the I've had the chip out the whole time. You left me like all of that is just incredible, and I really
So
think
good.
It was
really
a
think
fantastic finale. So
I really think, yeah, people sleep on those characters as not as being, well, they're just clones, you know, which is part of the context of
Yeah.
the story itself. They're just clones. Forget about them. Like they're not interesting.
it's
But
that is like a main driving force of
as your
show.
video
Yeah.
points out, these are invisible wounds, and
hmm
it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
I
Definitely like one of the most nuanced character moments in Star Wars, I would argue, is the conversation between Hunter and Crosshair. Like, there's just so much
Their
to
debate.
unpack there. It's
Yeah.
so well done.
Mhm.
and you brought up
And
the
more.
behind the scenes on the Bad Batch. It's just a question for me. Did you? And I imagine you did, but because I've seen the videos. But those behind the scenes, they're all on YouTube now. But for Clone Wars that are pulled from the DVDs are just like legendary in the way they get into the
Ugh,
and
so good.
Rebels had Rebels Recon, and I don't know if they didn't really go as much behind the scenes, but
No.
you still
There was a few featurettes, yeah.
you still got a
Not as
good.
good as the Clone Wars ones.
But the
They went by
Clone Wars,
art.
Yeah.
They went
yeah,
by art.
I have sat
So.
down and listened to all those ones where it's like
Mhm.
Killian Plunkett and Dave Filoni and all the people just like their days like watch the episode. Have you seen those where they just sit and watch
Yes.
it and like it's
Yeah.
amazing.
I've
Like,
seen
I
all of
can't believe-
them. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe they did that. Aren't
They're
those just wonderful? Like I have so much joy
Yeah.
for those.
That
So
is
good
the
television.
quality of like sort of behind the scenes material I would hope to see from the Bad Batch, but it'd probably be more like
I
the
agree.
Rebels sort of behind the scenes stuff if it was. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I think the behind the scenes stuff for like when Lucasfilm was just Lucasfilm, I think is miles better. Even you know even the prequels behind the scenes stuff. I always loved watching those featurettes and
Oh yeah.
Anyways,
I think it has to do more with just the development of streaming. If we're talking about behind the
I
scenes,
think
the
it
way
is that is a
yeah.
main
and
component
the
of
like
it, yeah.
physical media not being as much a thing, because all of those behind the scenes, a lot of them for Clone Wars are pulled from the DVDs and the Blu-rays.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the way that I mean, look at like with Doctor Strange, like the way Marvel movies are, they go to Disney Plus in 45 days, but there are no behind the scenes on there. They take out the deleted scenes, they put those on the Blu-ray, but even then, like certain versions don't have them, and they're just making
No, they
it.
have they have a I don't think is it called the Marvel Gallery or it's called something Marvel.
Well,
assembled, I think.
yeah, they do have
They
the
do have
assembled stuff, but
the
I mean in
assembled,
the traditional way of what you're talking about, like with Revenge of the Sith, where it just has like a
No,
wall of deleted
yeah, yeah,
scenes and hours and hours and hours long.
Yeah.
I mean, I will stand by the fact that I do think Force Awakens doesn't, but in terms of the new stuff, Rise of Skywalker and Last Jedi have pretty good documentaries attached
Last
to them.
Jedi I
They
think
do,
is
yeah.
probably the best behind the scenes documentary.
Yeah, Director and the Jedi is pretty
Very,
good.
very good.
That one's
Director and the
fantastic.
Jedi is
Yeah.
Pretty good.
top notch.
Weird.
Yeah.
We
Top
total aside as we're talking about behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Weird as we maybe transition into a broader topic, but weirdly, like Solo not only has the most convoluted production, but if you're ever making a video about it, it also has the only dedicated behind the scenes book that they've made in the new era, because it has
Really?
it has both an art book, like one of the Phil Sostak ones,
Yeah.
but it also has the only one that they actually, I have it on my shelf. It's making of Solo, a Star Wars story, like presented by
That's
ILM, and it has the whole making of, but only from when Ron Howard joined. And it's like there's so much
Yeah.
like information. It's weird how little and how also much at the same time that we have about Solo, about certain parts of it that no one just knows about. And it hurts my heart because I love Solo. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just the behind the
Solo.
scenes. That's also behind the scenes change just because of how much production
keep that in
total
mind.
there have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. And making a book is good. Well, Johnny, do you have any?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions about the video essay, or I mean
Oh,
specifically,
man.
because there's a lot to say, but we can also
There's
transition
there's
into
so much to say.
more about your experience, Parks, with Star Wars, or just
I
fiction in general.
don't know. I mean, if it comes to me, I'll certainly say it. But I mean, yeah. I mean, I've been following your channel for quite a long time, and so
Yeah.
it's been cool to talk to you. And yeah, I your Clone Wars series is my favorite. It was a really well made video. So
Thank you.
shout
Yeah.
out.
It's funny because I go back, and this is just a thing that any creator, artist, whoever experiences. When you go back and revisit your older stuff, like
Yeah,
it's hard to watch because
it is.
like for
Yeah.
me, because I'm like, oh, God, like I'm just mispronouncing every other word, and like the background noise is so loud.
You get
and-
hard on yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Even
everyone says it's their favorite. Like some people say they're their favorite, and so I kind of wonder, like, man, like maybe I'm trying too hard now. Maybe I should just, and I have such a much more organized approach now. So my strategy with the Mandalorian video was like, okay, I'm going to by force like make everyone's new favorite video of mine, hopefully. But
No,
yeah,
this was it was fantastic. It was
thank you. Yeah.
yeah. So I love how
and
you
I
section it
also
in parts and yeah.
yeah, I like to point out that I love the repeating the legend, brilliance, legacy because you're doing it
Yeah.
with Mass Effect too.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's a
I'm
cool
trying
motif.
trying to make that a format until,
That's
in a very vain way, a bunch of other YouTubers start copying it, and then
sure.
that's when I'll know
Right,
I made
know.
it.
Yeah,
Of
right.
course. Yeah, actually,
I,
well, here's a question. Because I like, so I'm going to film school now, and literally,
Yeah.
I will say what got me into film is not only obviously watching movies, but the video essays. Like video essays kind of
Oh
changed
yeah.
my whole kind of outlook on the industry and production and how films were made and this, that, and the other thing. But kind of how did you so I know you mentioned you made a couple short films and whatnot. So um, I'm actually curious just thinking about it now. Like how did you not only get into film but get into video essays and all that stuff.
With film, I mean, I'd have to, sort of pay my gratitude to my parents for, taking me to the theater so much when I was a kid, and instilling a love for movies early on. I think the first movie I watched that ever made me go like, hang on, like how did they do that? Like how is this? How are movies made? Was probably like The Dark Knight when I first saw that. Um,
Yeah.
but reaching farther back, when I was like probably 4 or 5, and I just watched Spider-Man 2002 on repeat like every day. I'd put it the DVD in and every single day. One day I actually broke the DVD, and
Wow.
it was the worst day of my childhood. I was
That
devastated.
is an awful day.
So the only way I could relive it was by watching the behind the scenes featurettes over and over and over. And so I did that.
Right, because you had 2 discs.
Exactly.
Right.
And so I like to think now like there's a direct line between that moment and me making video essays now, because
Sure.
I love like almost as much as watching a movie. I love sitting down and watching like, oh man, let's like just take an afternoon, go through all the behind the scenes stuff, like
Yeah.
especially like Lord of the Rings with all of that
Oh my
material.
God. Yes.
Yeah.
Same with me. Same with me.
I can't wait to get into the new ILM documentary. I haven't
I know.
broken into it yet, but
I started it.
part.
It's
Light your
very
magic.
good. It's
Yeah.
so
It's good?
good.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
I
partially like a
yeah.
making of Star Wars 2, like in there. It's really
Yeah,
good.
I figure it's such a big, obviously, it's such a big part of the company. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
but yeah, I mean, other than that, like I will say, like video essays sort of got my interest sort of revolving as well.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I remember seeing video essays probably as early as like 2014. With
Yep.
but video essays then are not like they've well, the culture around video essays has
Yeah, I think they've definitely changed
morphed a lot over time.
for sure.
Video
Yeah.
essays then that I watched were sort of like, here's how this editing technique works in this film,
Yeah.
and how did they do the one take approach of Birdman,
Sure.
stuff like that. And
Yeah.
and some video essays, were, like entirely no commentary. It was just visuals. It
Mhm.
was just like, here's shots from Nightcrawler and Drive like intercut
Yeah.
with each other. And stuff like that like has been in the back of my mind since then, because it just sort of opened my mind to like, the connections between this medium. And I used to make videos on another channel.
Mhm.
They were mostly like gaming videos and stuff like that, but over time I was like, man, like I love writing, I love editing, I really want to do something that involves more of that. And that's what led me to trying video essays without any
Mhm.
sort of guarantee of if they'd be good or not. And since then, yeah, like my whole, as I said several times during this show here, it's always been about like just trying to say what I want to say, and thankfully a lot of people have connected with that. So
yeah,
Yeah.
they've definitely become sort of a love language of fandom. The way people communicate.
one
is through-
second, sorry, I have an alarm
Yeah.
on my phone that's just going off.
You're good.
Okay, we're good. Sorry, I just had to
Oh,
swipe
I
it
see
off.
I see the Lego Daily Bugle. I'm actually staring at mine right now.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay, yeah, it's like
It's a beautiful set.
down.
It's a
Where's-
beautiful
where-
set.
down there.
Oh, is that
Yeah.
the Milano too? The Guardians.
It is not the Milano. You're
No.
probably seeing. So this is cool, actually. The middle
What is it? It
shelf
looks like
here
Yeah.
is all the Clone Wars Blu-rays stacked, and on
Oh,
top
let's
of it
go.
is the Mandalorian Starfighter, like the one
Oh,
with Bo-Katan.
Okay.
I see.
And then right across from it is the 501st ATRT, and in the back,
that's-
Anakin, Obi-Wan, Mustafar duel, and then I just have all my Clone Wars figures in there.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's very
so,
funny because as
And then you
yeah,
got the
as
Hot Toys. Ahsoka
yes,
and Rex
exactly, and that's
Maul?
Rex, Ahsoka, Maul, and you can't see him; he's behind Maul, but that's a 501st trooper with the Ahsoka helmet.
Yeah,
So,
Okay,
yeah.
awesome. I
Give it a
just
second.
got Ahsoka last week.
Oh,
I have- I have-
the
I
Clone
have-
Wars one.
Yeah, yeah. I have
It's very cool.
Clone Wars, Anakin, Rex, and Ahsoka. Those are the 3 I have.
that's funny. I swear.
Anyways, we just went on Hot Toys right.
With the-
Oh,
with the-
actually, wait.
with
Because Levi and I have been freaking out about it. Did you see the Kenobi Vader?
I did with the exposed mask. Yeah.
Excellent figure.
Levi does not have any Hot Toys, but is this gonna be your first, correct?
Probably my first. Yeah, I got pre-order.
Well, you won't see it for like probably 2 years.
2
For another
years.
year
Yep.
and a half, or 2 years. Yep.
I'm aware.
That's how.
Yeah.
Sideshow-
That's the thing that kills me because I waited so long for these figures, but then
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
they
no,
just
me too,
announced
me
Cad
too.
Bane, and I'm like,
I
like-
know, and the Clone Wars ones were announced like 2020, I think.
yeah, and they
Thanks.
just all rolled
Oh,
out this year pretty much.
Yeah.
So
Anyways.
Maybe I might. I don't know. I have the UCS Lego gunship that I have not built yet,
mm,
and I think that's probably going to be my next project.
That's
Yeah.
exciting.
It's probably going
Yeah.
to go right there if I can fit it. It might not fit. It's 27 inches or like 29 inches
It's
across.
a big.
The wingspan is a
Yeah,
killer for
the
that. on
wingspan.
that
It's
one.
killer.
Yeah.
I've seen one
Yeah.
in person at my friend's house, and I'm trying to figure out if I can put it on my shelf. I'm like, I don't know. It's tough. It's
Yeah.
gonna be tough. We'll see.
Yeah.
Wait. Speaking of Clone Wars,
Yeah.
getting back to the back to the interview. Do you think after all of your research that you have a favorite season of animated television for Star Wars?
Ooh.
Oh yeah, and it hasn't changed. It's always been season 5 of the Clone Wars.
Season 5.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Season 5 is a good one. I'm not. Season 5 is amazing.
Season
That's
5's a
my-
trip. Like
Season 5.
obviously the highlights are the
Mandalore
Maul
stuff,
Mandalore
yeah.
stuff,
stuff,
and
yeah.
then Ahsoka on the run at the end. But like when I was rewatching that, there's the Clone Wars, whether by intention or just how it unfolded over time, there is like so much momentum in that show building up to season 5.
Yes.
Like season 1 and 2, obviously, like a lot of things in the show are just sort of getting set up and started, and the creators themselves are working through some technical kinks and stuff like that. But then season 3
especially
really,
in season 1. Yeah.
especially in season 1, looking at you, Downfall of the Droid.
Yes, and we talk about
Yes,
that
we talk about it all
overexposed
the
shot of
time.
Rex.
It's
The
the
bullet,
worst
the
shot in the
light.
show. Like
Easy.
undisputed. Yeah.
It's horrific.
It's so.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's
But no, and then season 3 is obviously where it's like, oh, this is getting interesting with like
Yeah.
Dooku betraying Ventress, and that's where like the show starts to sort of betray sort of like the conventional sort of black and white sort of conflicts you know in Star Wars, and stuff
Yeah.
starts to get really messy and complicated, and
muddies the
then
waters for sure. Yeah.
it gets even more complicated in season 4, and then 5, like you get that in spades with the Onderon arc. You get an excellently directed, like super, like just tonally fantastic, fun youngling arc. You
Meeber
have
Gascon. How do you get
you have an
Meeber?
absolutely bonkers
Gascon,
droid arc. I
my
know people
boy.
don't like that arc, but like, come on, man, it's bonkers. Like it
I
goes all over the
unironically do.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
Like it's just crazy
insane.
what happens in the span of a few episodes. It's just
Yeah.
insane.
He goes
Um,
from being abandoned in this endless wasteland, and then he finds
Void.
He finds Gregor, the Void.
He finds a clone commando,
Finds
and
a
then he
clone
helps
commando.
them get on a ship that's about to
The
explode.
Rhydonium. It does
Right.
have the best. I will give it this. It does have the best explosion in the whole show. Is that the Rhydonium explosion? At the end?
100%. It's beautiful.
On the
like,
cruiser?
I can't think of
Gorgeous.
it. Oh yeah, yeah.
And then like there's this shot of like it like knocking the wave, knocking everyone
Yes,
back.
yes.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the- That's good. It's good. That's good.
It's cool.
I'm there
And
for
then
that.
Maul Mandalore, it's just
It's-
cinema. Like it's the best.
Palpatine
is.
comes in.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
crazy. And then it ends like where you're just like, dude, Mandalore is worse. Like Mandalore has never been in a worse state. Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's been ruined. And like it's so cool. It was so fun looking back on that arc in the Mandalorian video I did as well, because like obviously you can trace a very clear line between that whole incident with Pre-Visual Maul to the Mandalorian, funnily enough.
Yeah.
And then the Ahsoka arc is just like one of my favorite stories in the franchise. Like
That's
it's so good, and meant a lot to me as a kid seeing that moment of Ahsoka walking down the stairs and sort of like I always regard Ahsoka as sort of, you know, this generation's sort of Luke Skywalker. And what if you dropped Luke into the Clone Wars? I feel like he would have made a lot of the same decisions Ahsoka did.
Yeah.
And like the fact that she leaves the Jedi and leaves the Republic is very telling about this era to that point.
I'm just thinking about the way that she looks at him in Book of Boba Fett and the way they look at each other.
Yeah.
Crazy. Crazy that that's a real thing. That Luke Skywalker was looking at Ahsoka
Very
Tano.
exciting.
Like
yeah.
Crazy.
But yeah, season 5 is the best.
Yeah, Parks. I don't know if this is public information or this is something we just heard at Celebration, but I don't know how much this got out there. But Dave talked about how he knows the story of how they met, but he just he doesn't want to shove it into anything, so he's just waiting for the time to tell it. But he does know and has the whole thing written of how Ahsoka and Luke met. And in Book of Boba Fett, that's not the first time. He's like, nor will it be the last. He sort of teased us. And he was like, I know how they meet, and there's a whole story there, but I'm not telling it. And I was like, okay, thanks, Dave. Eventually,
I'm imagining it's in the Ahsoka. We'll see, I guess, but
maybe I don't know. Just putting that out there.
You'd figure if Hayden Christensen's gonna be in that show, surely there's a lot of other sort of dues to pay in terms of like what's going on with Ahsoka and
For
Luke.
For sure.
Yeah. That's most anticipated scene in Star Wars at the moment would be that.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah. Well, before we move away from Clone Wars, I do just want to say that I think that season 2 is the best season, and no one will ever
love that season.
Change my mind, because I don't think there is a single bad episode in season 2. I think the whole thing
has good arcs.
It has the longest arc in the whole show, the Geonosis arc, that only would have been surpassed by Dark Disciple, but that never came out. And then I think it's Cad Bane, Geonosis, then you have Grievous Intrigue with Cut LaQuaine, and oh my god, all that stuff is great.
Season 2 is my favorite as well, but
then you have the introduction of the Mandalore stuff with Satine and the murders, and then Zillo Beast, and then Boba. Even though Boba, I think, it might be the weakest arc of that season with Boba Fett.
Boba stuff
I know, and I use that Boba arc a lot to argue the context for Book of Boba Fett, saying that this was always in his character, and that George changed the character way back in 2002 when he made him a clone. And the fact that he's like this sympathetic, tragic character has always been a thing since Clone Wars, for certain. And what Book of Boba Fett is doing is not fundamentally changing anything about the Boba Fett character. I don't know how you feel about that part, but that's a rant I will go on, because I'm like, this has always been Boba. He's always been this manipulated poor kid who's living up to this legacy that's crushing him.
I mean, I love season 2, and I mean, I don't know how to rank the seasons after 5. Maybe I'd put 4 next. I love the escalation of the show, and I love I also love a good finale. Like, my favorite episode of Rebels is the final episode of Rebels, because it's like everything comes together. You know, it's so great. But I love season 2, and so many people tend to lump season 1 and 2 together as
they're bad. And I'm like,
which I don't.
And so a big point for me when I made my videos was like, no, season 2 is actually where it changes. Like it gets really good.
Drastically.
And you can see that too with sort of the talent behind the show, like Joel Aaron, visual effects supervisor, who's still working on all these shows.
We saw him at Celebration.
Oh wait, what would you say?
We saw him at Celebration.
Right?
Oh yeah. Love that guy.
Very cool guy.
But
friend of the show.
I remember, when I was in Florida rewatching the show at the time, and I remember I'm like, okay, yeah, man, like Cad Bane was one of my favorite characters when I was a kid. Obviously, I love these episodes. I remember getting to landing at Point Rain, and I was
my favorite episode of the show.
I watched it once, and I was like, dude, and I watched it again.
It is the
right after before I moved on.
This is what I'm talking about. This is what I will always preach, that landing in Point Rain, if you're gonna try and get someone, like, that is, to me, it is the proof of concept of what Clone Wars can be. It is so good. The way it's directed is amazing. It is just a nonstop.
You did just unlock something in Levi. So.
Because I love that's my favorite episode. I'm always like,
I agree. It's a fantastic.
When I came over, Johnny, you're like, oh, what episode should we put on? Put on your favorite Clone Wars episode. I said, Landing at Point Rain. It is. You point that on, and you put that on, and it's entertaining. so good.
awesome. It's
Oh my
It's
god.
yeah, no, I mean, and there's such a I love like obviously the action is fantastic, but I love the
Oh
control
god,
of
yeah.
tone in that and
Yeah.
how um like it starts out like any other Clone Wars battle does, you know, they're all quipping, they're all making jokes,
Like,
and then
good
literally
thing these
the
bugs
moment
can't aim. Dead.
yes, that's literally the moment where things turn
It's
is
like,
that.
uh-oh.
And then
Yeah.
the music, like, there's no music for like large parts of the episode, and you know, there every time they cut back to sort of the landing zone, like it gets worse and
Like,
worse.
worse.
There's a
Yeah.
fantastic tracking shot where it's the
The
Geonosian
guy.
riding a
Oh,
speeder,
yes.
and he's like,
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
and
Yes,
it's cutting
yes.
between. He's on the cannon
It's so
in the
good.
gunship, and like the door closed. He gets blown back, and the door
Yeah.
closes. Oh my god.
And then every time they
Excellent.
cut between all the characters, there's just like something crazier happening, and then I think towards like maybe the end of the second act of the episode, like they're just cutting between all of them, and it's just they're all like super screwed basically,
Yeah.
and then it turns wonderfully at the end. Yeah,
Yes.
fantastic episode. So
It
good.
is.
Big fan. Big fans of Landing at Point Rain on this channel.
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
It's a good. Well,
Mhm.
yeah, but
yeah.
I was gonna ask you, like, what do you think your favorite episode is?
Like I said earlier, like I love a good finale. Victory or Death.
Yeah.
Like before
good.
that,
Good answer.
That's a great answer.
And because to me, that's just like, you know, again, like I love when they're able to stick the landing, and I love the dilemma Ahsoka and Rex are put in that episode. I love obviously the last two shots being mirrors for each other, mirrors through different moments of
Yeah.
Star Wars. I love Ahsoka letting go of her lightsaber has such a direct connection to that sort of the same sort of philosophy Luke stumbles upon in Return of the Jedi when he throws away his lightsaber and is like, you know, I'm not going to kill my father. And just the whole symbolism you could argue about the Republic Venator being this, you know, this is sort of like the home base of the entire show. When we see the Venator, we know that's the Republic. Well, in that finale, it's crashing into the atmosphere, slowly chipping apart. Like it's so brilliant. Before that, though, the Wrong Jedi, like I said earlier, like
Yeah, season
Ahsoka
5,
being
yeah.
a character that can walk away from the path that was sort of chosen for them is something that has had a profound impact on my life, honestly. Like being, you know, 13 years old when I first watched that episode, like, yeah, that is something I think about regularly. And yeah, a couple other fun ones in there, but I like all the episodes that are super popular, to be honest, you know, because they're great, you know,
They're great for a
they're
reason, yeah.
awesome. Yeah. And Landing at Point Rain is probably my top 5 for sure.
Yeah, I could rant on and on. And yeah, the way that for our generation that Clone Wars impacts us at those certain times in our life, like, and we'll never forget some of those memories. Like,
Yeah.
I have this, I've blocked down most of it according to my parents, but I had like pretty bad pneumonia apparently. Like, and I remember I talk about it all the time for the longest time. I was like, I'd be like, oh, pneumonia's not bad. It was fine. And they'd be like, what were you talking about? I'm like, yeah, I just like was in the hospital bed and then they sent me home. And they're like, no, they're like, you got like crazy tubes. And I was like, I don't remember any of that. But that night in the hospital, I was like, I need to get home because I need to watch the premiere of season 4.
Yes.
I need to see how season 4 starts. And so getting home from the hospital in time to catch the Water War and Mon Cala, and like seeing that, and even though I'll just never forget that. Or trying to get home from even earlier. I love telling this story, so I will tell it. But I was at this is 2009. I was at my cousin's high school graduation, and I was like, I don't give a flying crap about this. Get me home. It is the finale of Clone Wars tonight. And you know, at this point, I'd seen the movie the previous summer. I'm watching each episode religiously. But I don't understand the concept of being able to rewatch something or catch it on the DVR. So I'm like, these things air once and they're gone forever. This is my only chance. So I get home.
I was the same way.
Yeah.
And I walk into Cad Bane shooting the Senate guard on the platform, and Aura Singh, you know, throwing that thermal detonator. And I was like, oh my God, what am I watching? What is happening? And that is always burned in my mind of like the shock of what is going on? Who is this guy with the cowboy hat? And
Clone Wars was violent, man. Clone Wars got really violent.
Dude, it is. It so is. And like,
it's probably the darkest sort of like canon of stories in the franchise.
Absolutely.
Perhaps.
But stuff
darker
like that,
than the movies.
It'll never
like, straight up. Like,
but having done
so much violence,
having done so much research on it, one of the really underrated topics, and I think maybe you can speak to it, is actually how diverse and just expansive the directors who they brought in to do stuff on, and some of like the really high class directors who they got in to like guest direct episodes. People don't talk about that enough. I mean, I was watching it the other day, but a grievous intrigue and The Deserter, the episodes with Cutler Quain in season 2. They're directed by like the second unit director of A New Hope. Like George and Dave were like, oh, let's bring him in, and he did.
Yeah.
I
Like,
don't think I knew that.
I know, like I didn't know it either till yesterday. And I'm a
That's whack.
huge fan, and there's stuff like
Yeah.
that where you just don't know. And there's this. It's because I was thinking about, and maybe you guys know this too. But there's this. It's the only time I think it ever happens in Clone Wars. But there's this really well cut, edited scene where Grievous is trying to escape, and an ATTE shoots down a missile, and it's this like really quick cut, and then the
Yeah.
clone's like, "Great shot," and then like that's it. But it's like this 10-second sequence that I was like, is this real? Am I misremembering this? Like, what is this from? And so I looked it up and found it. And I was like, why is this so well directed? And it's the guy who did Second Unit on A New Hope. I'm like, what? Like,
There you go.
damn,
yeah.
like Clone
That's
Wars,
wild.
man. Like, it's good.
Yeah, I was tweeting it earlier about it. Actually, funny you mention it because the most mind blowing sort of fact in that regard about directors of the show to me is the General. The second episode of the Umbar arc was directed by Walter Murch, who you know, like if you go to film school, like you've heard of the rule of 6, which is sort of the rule of how to edit. That's his rules. This guy edited The Godfather. He edited Apocalypse Now.
Yep.
You know, this guy worked with Francis Ford Coppola. No doubt he's a friend of Lucas, but yeah, he directed that episode, and the General's insane. Like, and very much the same way as Landing the Point Rain is insane. But the General being like sort of the conflict of
like
these clones are being slaughtered, and they're trying to argue with Paul and Krell about what to do, and he's like, "No, I don't care." And it's just like, dude, like this is insane. But and then he had input on the rest of that arc, and then another one, I think. Paul Dini, who you know worked on Batman the Animated Series, and you know Heart of Ice, that you know wonderful episode from that show.
People may have heard of that one.
Yeah,
you may have heard of that one. They won an Emmy.
You may have heard of it.
May have heard of it. Worked on Dooku Captured, I think, and I think he did a couple of other episodes in season 1.
I don't think I knew Paul Dini worked on Clone Wars. That's actually crazy.
Yeah.
So Clone Wars is like a stacked class sometimes.
Yeah,
it's pretty much like Lucas and all his friends. You know, like it's really wild.
Which is cool.
Yeah,
and they're all like amazing, talented people.
I love. Yeah, you're right. The second episode of that Umbar arc. Yeah, when there's that shot, there's that like sort of circling shot of the Umbar and Centipede things like exploding together as they as they like merge. And it is just so visceral, and the way that episode is directed is just you feel the fact that
there's some teeth clenching moments in that episode where it's just like there's so much like overwhelmingly like just dangerous stuff happening in front of these clones, and they're just like, what do we do? You know, like
it's horrifying.
Yeah, it's great.
You talk about Clone Wars ad nauseum.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, before because we are going on an hour here, so we'll probably wrap it up soon-ish. But while we have you here, I would love to just hear, some of the things we usually ask our guests. Like, what's your first Star Wars memory? Like in the context of, we know you, obviously we cover other things on the channel too, but for this, like what's your first Star Wars memory? What's that like?
I have some sort of like memories here and there of maybe watching some of the Star Wars movies on VHS. I don't remember the memory I tell everyone, like this is the moment I sort of like, I was like, I'm watching Star Wars was, I was 7 years old. I think my, it was like a Saturday or Sunday afternoon or something. And my parents were flipping through the channels, and, Spike TV did one of their famous Star Wars marathons.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. That's a weird throwback.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And, I think at when we had just flipped the channel, the Battle of Naboo was starting, with the Gungans coming out of the mist.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, what is this? What's happening?
Yeah.
And yeah, I was like hooked. And then at some point, like Darth Maul comes on the screen, and I remember like looking at my dad and being like, who is that? He looks crazy. And my dad said, that's Darth Vader. So obviously my dad was not up to snuff with his Star Wars knowledge, but
that's Darth Vader.
I would uncover that approximately 48 hours later when they show Revenge
That's
of the
Darth
Sith.
Vader. That's Darth Maul.
Yeah, exactly.
That's Darth Vader.
There. Easy confusion.
Easy.
I guess.
Yeah, no, and then that was kind of the first thing, was like the Battle of Naboo, weirdly, with the Gungans and the battle droids. Like it was just so like I mean, I've always loved sci-fi since I was a kid. So that was just one of those visuals that I was just like, what is going on? This is crazy.
Yeah.
That's
Spike
awesome.
TV, that really hit me, man.
Those were
remember those
weekends
so-
as a kid. It was I
Yeah,
have Spike
yeah,
on the
that is.
background with the Star Wars movies
Uh-huh.
playing, and I play with Legos.
Uh-huh.
Like that was how it
Yep.
was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
When they're
That's
with
awesome.
you.
Yeah, Johnny, go ahead. I've been asking them.
So yeah, I'm thinking of I mean, like Levi said, we ask, these are like our generic but fun questions.
Yeah.
So another one, I don't know if we've asked it in a while, but what is your favorite obscure Star Wars character? So this can be like any background character that you particularly like or anything like that.
I've been asked this before. My answer is usually Meeber Gascon, but we name dropped him earlier.
We did.
So-
we are big Meeber fans here.
I
Found
I
my
got
people.
Meeber on my background here. Yeah, big Meeber fan.
But to pick a really obscure one. So when I mentioned before, I had a YouTube channel before ArTorr. That channel was called ArTorr. That was partially based off of a alien in the cantina named Cytor Calfess. It's like they look like a Trandoshan, but apparently
Yeah,
they're
it's not. I know. It's like
Yeah.
this weird retcon. We're like, why not just make it a Trandoshan?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
look
that
it
would
up.
that would be the one where I'm like,
Okay.
yeah, that's my background character.
All right.
That's a good one. I mean, he's Johnny. You know him. He's like at the bar when there's
me
a couple of shots of
look
him,
him
like
up.
pretty
Look.
straight on, and he just looks like a Trandoshan, but it's like not.
But it's just
very
not.
straight. Yeah, like they're just like, but what if it wasn't?
Okay.
I don't-
Well,
I don't know. Like, it's some of those weird original trilogy stuff where it's like,
yeah.
And choosing that choosing the name from that had nothing to do with like my my affinity for the alien itself. It was just the name that seemed cool. That was all.
Which
So-
I gotta ask, is your name now? Like I thought your name now ArTorr. I didn't know about the previous channel. I thought it was like a play on a tour, like a director, like you're.
It's a play on numerous things. So
Yeah, that's what I
obviously
was-
it comes from ArTorr. Like that's sort of the first thing. But then ArTorr, when I was thinking of names for a new channel, that jumped to mind because it is a play on ArTorr. But
That guy was crazy.
it also has art in the title. It has a sort of a like sound to a lot of characters that I like. R2, King Arthur, which is a mythological character, and I do a lot of discussion on mythological characters on my channel. So it checks several boxes at once.
No,
Okay.
it's a great channel name. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. There you go.
Thank you.
We approve.
I put a lot of fun into it.
You approve, yeah.
I think my favorite Cantina alien is probably Ellis Hellrot. That's a real.
Which one is that?
That's a real guy. He's the guy who kind of looks like he has a ghost face. Like he has the
Oh,
real
yes.
dead eyes.
Yes.
Which is, like
Weird.
black and
Yeah,
Yeah.
that guy. Yeah, man. I want to.
his name is Hellas.
A shame there's never a Clone Wars episode where we met. Those people on
Oh, hell
on
yeah.
their planet.
There
Yeah.
should be.
His name is Hellas Hellrot.
Or even
Awesome.
Bad Batch,
Make it happen. Yeah,
That
make
could
it
be,
happen.
you know,
Filoni or whoever.
Still in the cards for sure.
Still on the cards. Okay, well that was
Yeah.
definitely a good answer because
Yeah.
for a second I went huh and I went all right. And that takes a lot for me to go what that's good. That's probably our best answer yet.
That's
good.
quite the. I
Yeah.
didn't even. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, you got anything else, Johnny? Because I know we have the final end bit, but I don't.
We got the final
this
piece.
is so much good. I don't want it to end. There's so much to talk about. like- It's true.
You?
Yeah, there's so much. I feel like there's so much to talk about. I
Alright.
don't want to go forever, because we
Right.
probably could.
We could.
I've
Um,
got time personally, so whatever you guys just lay it on me until it's over.
Well, I mean, okay. What was your what was the first Star Wars movie you saw in the theater? Oh, that one.
I would say Force Awakens, but that wouldn't be correct. The real answer would be The Phantom Menace in 3D.
Nice.
When they were doing that, and I was
Uh-huh.
like, oh man, they're not showing all the movies in 3D. Instead, they're making new movies. Wait a minute, they're making new movies,
Mhm.
But yeah, Phantom Menace in 3D.
Yeah, it was only Phantom Menace. They never did
Yeah,
the rest of them.
And they still made merch for the other two, but they just never came out. It was
the
actually funny.
timing of it,
They did.
yeah,
Oh, I
was
didn't know.
a little inconvenient, I suppose, because they started doing it in either 2011 or 2012, and
Yes.
then Disney bought
Yes.
Lucasfilm, and then
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
even
Oh,
understand why they were doing it at the time they did. Like, it wasn't even for an anniversary. It was just like, what
well,
if?
probably because they're financially struggling.
Well, maybe. I don't know. Lucasfilm was a
That might be why.
Clone Wars. Clone Wars was an expensive show.
Expensive show. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it
I-
And,
was.
and he was also trying to do his Lucas was trying to do his own live action show, so that was the whole thing.
Yeah,
That
Underworld.
is true. Yeah.
I hope, man. That is a thing that I want to see. Not necessarily the show itself, but like the scripts and the work, because it's been referenced in
Yeah.
passing in art books and things and in interviews that they still treat those as
Yeah.
like sacred text, so to speak, because
Yeah.
George had a hand in them. Like they're in the archives. You know, because a lot of things come from that show. Like Saw Gerrera comes from that show.
Yeah.
There's just
Really?
weird.
I don't know that.
Oh yeah, there's weird stuff that
Hmm.
we just don't know that actually originates in Underworld because we've just never seen almost anything. But there's 50 scripts, I think, to my memory. There's like a huge amount of
Yeah.
resource
It's a
and
lot.
wealth that they invested into working on that show. That I just one day, I hope it gets like an adaptation or something or just anything. Because
I would love if they
see.
released it to the public and then the fans could make like an audio drama version of it or a
That would be
fan
cool.
film series out of it. Like it,
Yeah.
it would be really cool. But yeah,
Absolutely.
Because like
Yeah.
they were gonna deal with like Palpatine origins and that stuff and
Yeah.
Boba Fett, and I was like, wow, man, like that show would have had just everything, and it's something I'm so I how could we forget? At the beginning of the show, we talked about it. Thoughts on Kenobi, the most recent Star Wars thing.
Right. Yeah.
Kenobi. Well, what did you guys
Mhm.
think of it?
We've
Right.
had quite the
I think
sort of
we've-
back and forth.
And also,
It's been
I
a
don't
gradual
think Jo-
arc.
I also
For
don't think
me-
Johnny and I agree. So
For me, I've kind of settled on it was enjoyable. I think it was the best script wise. I think it was the best possible version that we could have gotten because
Mhm.
a lot of the we've been getting a lot of the news dumps about the previous scripts and how the plot would have went with those and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah and I think yeah it was a pretty good show. I think the production quality could have been miles better, but it was a very much a rush product because they stopped shooting, I believe in September,
of last year,
right, of last year, and that's a very very quick turnaround, especially for a show. So I think that may have affected the quality of the show. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a good show. So
I think I know I like it more than Johnny. I like what it does for. I was always the person who said that, well, no, there has to be a reason why Obi-Wan in A New Hope would be this way to Luke, talking about his dad.
Yeah.
There, or in Return of the Jedi, Obi-Wan once thought as you do. I was never
Mhm.
under the impression that on Mustafar, he fully tried to save Anakin. I mean, he even says to
Yeah.
Yoda in Revenge of the Sith, like, I can't kill my brother. Like, you can't make me do that. And Yoda's like, go. And like, he does. And like, in that context, I always felt that there was a missing link of these two, Yoda and Obi-Wan, have to think that Luke has to kill his dad. And like, they have to think that this dude is gone. And I never thought that there was a gap there to me. And so I thought filling it in the way they did, and also, in my opinion, adding context with Leia that makes her Ben Kenobi in A New Hope actually make a lot of sense to
It
me.
adds more dimension to Leia.
The little itty
Yeah,
bitty
yeah.
connections I thought was really impressive throughout the
it
show.
adds some dimensions, but I totally agree that it was held back at times by a rushed production and some quality errors in terms of the way it's visually shot. Sometimes it's not very visually appealing in my opinion. But the story
Unfortunately.
itself, I greatly appreciate, as well as the new characters. Like I thought Reva's story, especially upon rewatch with the context of her motivation, the earlier episodes make it. I just think I liked that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a pretty big. I'd say I'm a pretty big fan of Kenobi. Not my favorite Star Wars show, but I'm a pretty big fan.
No.
We're probably mostly in agreement then. Like I mean, yeah, not my favorite show either. And I'd say, and this probably says more about my opinion on Book of Boba Fett than it does about Obi-Wan Kenobi. But I like Book of Boba Fett more than Obi-Wan Kenobi. And
That's what I'm talking about.
So you agree with me?
I do, and I know we're
Okay.
in a minority, but
I'm not a big
yeah.
Book of Boba Fett fan.
Yeah, this guy,
personally.
That's fair,
this guy we'll have a debate about because this man not a Book of Boba Fett guy. Love the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah,
Not
no,
for
I
me.
mean the rush production, 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
It definitely left a lot to be desired in terms of sort of the creative vision in some areas, like the
Mhm.
cinematography and the camera movement. The shaky cam has been memed on, but like I kind of agree. Like
Yeah,
Star Wars has
I think
always
it's somewhat
had this
warranted.
very like classical sort of imagery and shot composition, and it's what makes images stick for you. And
Yeah.
I can appreciate like wanting to do a different approach or wanting to do something new with it, but um, it didn't really work for me. And maybe the times it did were where say in like episode 3 of that show where Obi-Wan is he's at the door and Vader's just walking through town, and like the
Yeah.
camera is handheld, like it is facilitating that sort of grounded raw suspense
Mhm.
that comes with sort of the vulnerable feeling of the camera work. But when it came to like the duel in the last episode, or different sort of character moments where I was like, man, just like let the camera be like still, please.
Well,
Um,
the cinematographer, believe, was he's only done like very minor horror projects, from what
Okay,
I
don't say
understand.
minor. Chung Chung he's a
He's
well-known
done
cinematographer, but it's just
he
he
worked
does
on
horror.
Old Boy, right?
Oh
Yeah,
boy, that's what.
and
Yeah,
it
Yeah.
and it
Uncharted movie,
and
whatever.
Uncharted. Okay, so never mind.
But
Let me
no, he's not like
listen.
unknown,
I'd
but it's just
figure his
No, yeah, I didn't say he
approach
was
to the
unknown,
show
but
yeah.
was more from like a lack of sort of a strong sort of creative initiative of like,
yeah,
this is why we should have the camera this way versus like
right.
it might just be easier to do these handheld shots. I don't know. Um, and yeah, like
I
there's a lot of
imagine it
shots where I'm
was.
like, go
Sorry,
ahead.
sure. I imagine because it was quicker,
Yeah. Yeah.
to do in a
And
rush
I hate to
production.
say
So,
that,
but
like
yeah,
about
which is
something, I'd
unfortunate.
like to think thought was put into it, and surely,
Yeah,
there was a justification for it, but it also feels like, man,
sure.
this feels like, maybe something better could have been done. But,
Yeah.
and I thought the contrary. Then I think all the character stuff was very solid. I love what they did with Leia.
Mhm.
I think Obi-Wan's arc is compelling. I like the character beats with Vader. I love how that moment at the end is like, embellic of a lot of stuff in Star Wars, and that, sort of the dark side is a choice you make. It's not like, Anakin was manipulated for sure in a lot of different ways, but this dark path he's on, ultimately, you know, you can put as much blame as you want on the things that manipulated him, and obviously without those things he might have made a different choice, but ultimately he still made the
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
And that has of course a certain impact on Obi-Wan. Um, I didn't like the writing for the plot, if that makes sense, like sort of how it got them from character moment to character moment.
Yeah.
It felt very familiar, felt like, okay, we're trying to escape Echo Base and the Empire Strikes Back towards the end. And I wish,
Hmm.
I wanted more from some of the side characters, like Kumail Nanjiani's character and O'Shea Jackson's character. Um, I liked Tala; she was good.
Yeah.
Reva, I really enjoyed her character, I think, at first, but as it went on, I don't know. I thought she was a character to me that would have been done a lot better in a much longer show, like Rebels, a character like Reva and Rebels, where you
Yeah.
have all those
Interesting.
episodes to really tell her journey and her different
Mhm.
sort of realizations. I think would have landed a lot more for me. Um, but yeah, so I'm kind of on the fence about it. I
In the
didn't
mid
love
on
it.
it.
It
Yeah.
wasn't for me necessarily, and thankfully there's like you said when we started this, like there's plenty of other Star Wars stuff that is for me.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if I ever do make a video on it, my sort of thought process watching the show, being aware of like, okay, people are probably gonna, be like, are you gonna make a video on this?
Yeah.
Was it is so intertwined to some of the thematic discussion in the saga that I don't even know if I'd make a video about it until I talk about all the Star Wars movies first.
I think you
Um,
could connect it a lot, like that show,
exactly.
to the other moments of
Yeah.
the other films.
Which is a
Yeah.
testament to sort of, Deborah Chow's sort of awareness of the story before and after,
Yeah.
and trying to
Yeah.
create something that added to everything that is around it. And in many ways it does. So, um, yeah. And it was enjoyable, but
Yeah.
I'm really excited for Andor to that point. Like
Yes. Oh,
um,
yes.
all the practical stuff that has been sort of leaked over time, and
Mhm.
just that, I know people have said like two things have been said. One is, can we stop telling stories about like Skywalkers or people close to
Yeah.
Skywalkers? And the second thing they've said is, why Andor? Why that guy? Well, there's your answer. There to that.
Yeah.
this is the guy you want for the thing you don't want, so
And what's
I'm
gonna
pretty
be so
excited.
cool, and we've talked about this is, originally it was gonna be 3 seasons, but now they changed it to
Mhm.
2, and I guess they're jumping every year
The
or every
first
5 years?
the first season is across a year, and
Across a year.
then the second season is 3 episode arcs, each covering a year of time leading
And-
up to Rogue One. Like they have it
So-
all
but
planned out,
Rogue
and it's all
One-
this is all
Rogue
public.
One
It's not even
being-
leaks. Like,
Exactly. Having
Yeah.
a target in mind is very exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Rogue One, I love that movie, but it feels like a finale to a show.
stealing my line.
No, but I agree with this. I mean,
I know.
I agree with that
hypothesis.
I
too.
said the same thing.
My
It's,
Rogue
I
One
watched
hypothesis.
it recently for the
I
first
think
time,
you'll have so much
probably
more
since it
appreciation
came
for Rogue
out,
One. Yeah.
and like and when I first saw it, I wasn't watching Rebels, and obviously Rebels wasn't
Mhm.
finished when it came out either. But I think there is a good sort of like connection to sort of your understanding of the rebellion between Rebels and Rogue One, like that
Yeah.
culmination of sacrifices in a way. But yes, also Rogue One will be a really cool finale when the Andor show is
Yeah, I can't
concluded.
wait for
I'm
that.
hoping.
That's
So
yeah. Yep. I mean,
I'm hoping too.
and the show has a powerhouse behind it. Like
In terms of the creative,
yes.
the
force,
creative
yeah.
team, like
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy. Like everyone who was working on, the VFX and the people in the creature shop and making the props and all that, they transferred over, and they were from they were
Neil
working on
Scanlon's team. Yeah.
sequels,
The sequels.
and they've transferred into the
Nice.
show like right after
Yeah.
they did the sequels. So, and this show has more creature prosthetics than all three sequels
combined.
combined.
Wow.
Like it's
That's
an
cool.
extensive, like it's gonna be a huge show.
Yeah.
I can't wait. So
Very exciting.
Yeah.
very
It is
excited.
very exciting. I mean, because I mean, you
In a
watch.
couple weeks.
You've seen all the. I know for a fact that you've seen all the Mandalorian behind the scenes, and in
Yeah.
it, you don't see Neil Scanlon or the creature team at all. It's all the.
That's a
it's
great
all-
point. Yeah.
It's all the other team. It's all
And they recycle a lot of props from
the sequels
those,
because they
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
because they
yeah.
don't have the main creature shop team working on it.
Mhm.
They've just
They're
been
working on
grinding
Andor.
on Andor, and I am
Yeah.
so excited to see the work they did because you may have seen like at San Diego Comic-Con, like even the first thing that we've publicly seen, it's like it's his droid B2 EMO, and it's like designed by Neil Scanlon. I'm like, yes,
That's
where
awesome.
that's where he's been. Like this is what he's
That's
been
cool.
doing. He's been working
Yeah.
on that, and it, as a behind the scenes, nerd or
And
like
the trailer is like obviously insane.
we could
Yeah,
rant and rave.
that's-
We could rant and rave about Andor.
Yeah,
man.
we can rant and rave. Oh my goodness.
I'm very, very excited for that show and what it could potentially do. I talk about
Yeah.
themes, dude. You're gonna make a hell of a video essay about Andor.
I think
man.
Andor is gonna be
Oh,
the one
Oh
that's
god.
gonna have a lot of thematic resonance and.
It's gonna be a lot of
so-
episodes.
Yes, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, I think shall we go to the last little bit?
We can.
have
I
here?
mean, I
Yeah.
would love to keep talking, but in the interest of the viewer and keeping a succinct podcast,
Sorry, viewer.
interview. Sorry, viewer. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, we I think maybe we can. Do you want to intro
Okay.
the bit or shall I?
I'll intro the bit.
Okay.
Yeah. So every podcast we have when we bring on a guest, we've kind of done this thing in hindsight. It is quite chaotic, but we've done it. So
We have done
we
it.
started this a while ago. We set up this tier list with every Star Wars project, and originally it was a combination. So there was originally three members of the channel. So we had all our opinions kind of averaged into this tier list. And as we've gone on and people have come on, they have been allowed to move
One thing on the tier list.
up, left or
One
right,
thing?
down, wherever.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
Every time we have a guest on,
right-
they just move something.
they just move it.
We've been doing it for a while, so this list
We've been doing it for a while, so it's
It's
quite
like-
it's quite
like the worst Star Wars list
insane
you'll ever see.
Oh god.
list.
Yeah. And I don't have to
So-
move it where I agree. I don't have to move something where I agree it should be either. I could just
You
Screw
can
it
do
up
Could
whatever
be
you want.
chaotic. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, people
You
have done
can-
that. There's a lot of precedent
so-
for that. There's a lot of precedent.
No, yeah, there's people have done that absolutely. So I will I'll pull it up here. So here's what it looks like now.
Resistance number 2. That's what I'm talking
Resistance is
about.
number 2.
everything in S tier. That's awesome.
Yes,
Every-
yeah, there's a lot of
Clone
S
War-
right now.
The Clone Wars movie is better than Revenge
Yeah.
of the Sith. I like
Yep.
that. We like that.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Yeah, dodge from
That's
Solo to
awesome.
S, and I love that for me.
Yeah.
But Ruthie moved Book of Boba down to D, and I
To D.
can't stand it. But
I'm with her. I'm
Is
with
it-
her on that. But
it is upsetting. However, yeah, this is a very cursed.
so this
list.
is it. Yeah. So you can take your time if you want.
I like
but
that
you can
Attack of the
move-
Clones is A above A New Hope. I love that.
Yep.
I forgot about that. I forgot.
Yeah,
about
there's
that.
some weird ones on here. I
Yes.
don't know. Like
All of Rebels is also C, which I hate. I hate that literally everything is like S, and then all of Rebels is C. It's like,
C,
why?
yeah.
Pain.
To me this feels like you know, when I've just been gone for the weekend and I come back and like the sink is full of dishes. And I'm like,
Yeah, you're like, man,
Yes.
where to
I gotta
start?
clean these, but where do I
You gotta
start?
clean this, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. That's funny.
Okay, so here's my thoughts right now.
Okay.
I would not put Solo at the top.
Okay.
Nor Resistance. Empire is pretty close to where, you know, it
Sure.
could be. The
Sure.
Clone Wars movie, I'm a Clone Wars apologist, but like I'm a Clone Wars movie apologist, but
Yeah.
that's a bit generous. Revenge of the Sith is fine, Mandalorian's fine, Last Jedi's fine. Force Awakens, yeah, it's fine.
That's
Because
Clone
it's me,
Wars,
I might
so-
just take Clone Wars and move it up to the very top of S tier. You know,
a non-controversial take.
the Clone Wars supremacy. Return of the Jedi, maybe lower. Attack of the Clones. See, at this point, I'm like, I don't want to be a hater on anything. Like, I try to like, I enjoy it.
No,
most
no,
Star
no,
Wars.
Exactly.
Star
It's
Wars.
the last podcast we had on. We had guests on, and they were like, well, "What would your
There's
list
3 of
list be?"
them.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, well, you know, like if it was up to me, everything would be an S, just because I like to appreciate everything." And they're
Yeah.
like, "That's a fake ass answer. I'm putting Book of Boba in D," and I was like, "No." So I got burned
No,
last time.
it's a chaotic
And
list. We've
in fact,
definitely had fun
yeah,
with it.
on the last pod, Solo got moved to the top, and then Rebels and Book
Yeah.
of Boba got moved to C and D.
Yep.
That was
Man.
even. So.
I'm thinking of doing what someone on my Discord thinks, which is A New Hope is the worst Star Wars movie, so make it F.
Okay.
I don't
That'd be
know if I
awesome.
should. I'm torn between that or
Okay.
putting Clone Wars at an S. I think I want to flip a coin to do it though. So
I'll tell you what. I
all
mean,
right.
yeah,
Flip
I
a
don't want to
coin,
influence.
the first coin flip, Levi.
Our first
The
coin flip. Parts with
So.
the content.
pulling
Wow.
out, I pulled out my my D&D dice bag to do this.
Okay.
Nice.
Alright.
So
This is
heads
awesome.
is Clone Wars goes to S, tails is A New Hope goes down.
Come on,
Sure.
Tails never fails. I want to see a New Hope in F.
It's tails.
Yes. New Hope is going to F.
New Hope's
Okay. Here we go.
This is it. This is it. This is a real
Enough.
wow.
Wow.
When
It's enough now.
whenever someone looks at this, I just want to see like how long it takes for A New Hope to be reshuffled again, or if someone will do that
Yeah,
immediately.
well,
Or if we're just gonna be stuck.
I think
Well-
I think it's so heinous that probably someone will have to move it. I mean,
Yeah. I don't know.
oh shoot!
All I can tell you is I don't agree with that, but someone does.
someone does.
Someone.
Yeah.
Oh shoot!
Someone
I mean,
definitely does.
hold
out
on. I mean, special injunction.
Yeah.
We don't have. I forget. We don't have Obi-Wan on this list. We haven't
don't have
updated with
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan. Do we want to the three of us?
I
quick,
have
ad-
Obi-Wan.
ad hoc?
We haven't done. had the
Let's
chance
throw
to do
Obi-Wan on there. Let's do an average
Okay.
of Obi-Wan.
All right.
I would.
Well,
I would. We do petitions with the way usually we do. We've done some ranking things in the past.
Yeah.
Each person gets like a. We'll throw. I would start the bidding at like low A, high B. That's what
Yeah.
I would start. That's my feelings
Well,
on Kenobi. Where
I
do you
do.
think?
I do low A as well.
You do low A? I'm surprised you're that positive on it.
Yeah.
I'm
I like the show.
crisp. I'm feeling a crisp C, but
Whoa.
Okay.
Okay.
that's again like this list is all over the place. So on a
It
normal
is.
list it'd be a C, but on this list,
So mid. So
Yeah, let's
mid
ignore
B?
ignore
on this
ignore
list I could
the-
do a high B probably.
a high B.
Okay.
Or
I'll
I mean,
accept.
I don't have my heart set
I'll
on it.
accept
It could be
high
a
B.
low A as well, but high B or low A.
I think I like the show the most out of all of you, and I want to respect the initial C gut feeling. So I think high B would probably be the average.
Okay.
High B. High
okay.
B. It is.
Like at
High
the
B.
top of B, yeah.
Yeah, it's top of B.
There we go. Nice.
There you go. Now look at this
Alright,
perfect. Look at this
Now
perfect
Kenobi's
list.
in the mix. So
Look at this perfect
Oh, good.
list. New Hope F. That is not what I
is-
was
Hey,
expecting.
on the bright side, like it only got better from there, you know.
It's
Yeah,
true.
no,
This is we've just the whole thing is now an F.
True.
It's just a big F. That's the list now. Look at it.
Yeah, it used to be a gun. We used to call it the gun tier list, and now it's
Because everyone
and
just
now
would
it
put
has
stuff in
changed.
S. Oh, okay. Well, that's the tier list bit.
Oh
Glad we-
man! All
glad we
right.
did that.
That was
There it
cool.
is.
I like that. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Well,
Thank you.
I mean, yeah, this has been way too much fun.
Yeah, it's been
Talking with you. I mean, it's been so awesome. We got to talk soon. Everyone, please go check out The Mandalorian: A Gunslinger's Odyssey, the new
I'll link
new
it.
essay.
I'll link it wherever, either up
It
here
is-
and then down in the description and all this stuff. So
It is a masterpiece of a video essay, if I do say so myself.
Thank you.
It will definitely impact the way you see the show, even if you already like it.
Yeah.
I mean, it can only stand to improve your view of what they did on that show. And just,
Absolutely.
yeah, please go check out ArTorr's channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for
Sit
coming
back,
on.
relax.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
like,
fun.
Yeah,
was
thank you
fun.
so much
Thanks
for
for
coming on.
having me.
It's
Yeah.
been
it's been a pleasure.
amazing.
So
So
leave your comments, guys, down below. What do you think of the pod? What do you think of the video essay? I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. It's
Yes.
approaching 100,000 views. Let's get it there. Our small,
let's get it.
let's get at least a couple hundred more views. 100,000. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Check out all the links in the description for the socials, Discord, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, everybody.